Hi, everyone. Welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Rob, welcome back. I'm back in the studio. No more just audio only.
Yeah, I know. We're back doing this. It feels like we were gone a long time. I don't know why.
Yeah, even though
it's only been a few weeks. Yeah.
And even though we were doing audio, it's just a little different when we only do audio. And of course, last week you were out for an event, and so let's. I guess maybe we could start there. You went up to somewhere in Canada, right?
Yeah, I went up a little further north than Calgary this time, up to the Edmonton area, up a little bit further north. So it was an interesting city to go to. About 750,000 people up there. It's a decent sized city. So that was where Pod Summit was held in its second year. So I kind of led off the event with a little state of podcasting presentation. I really focused on talking to that group about what's happening in Canada, because fortunately, the Edison folks came out with that share of ear study for Canada just a couple of weeks prior to that. So I had some information to share with them. I'm sure a lot of them probably heard about it, but I think a lot of the attendees of that event probably didn't know about that study that came out.
Really?
It had some interesting data that is unique to Canada. So about podcasting, actually, they listen to podcasts a little longer than even in the U.S. I mean, as far as more of them finish the full episode up there, which is interesting, than even in the U.S. And the Google Home smart speaker is the most popular smart speaker up there. The Alexa is not the most popular smart speaker up in Canada.
Let's call it the Amazon device so we don't trigger people's devices.
I know. I keep forgetting.
Yeah, that's okay. So what what else was going on at that event? What was their attendance? How'd that all look?
Well, it's still a pretty small event. It was about 100 people. It was held at the oldest public radio station in Canada. The station, I guess, was founded in 1927. But it was a beautiful facility in an older building with all, the actual place where it was held had an all glass back wall to the, as part of the presentation room, so you could see outside, and had a lot of natural light in it. But it was a really, it was just a one-day event. We just kind of flowed through, starting with my presentation, talking about kind of the state of podcasting, and then flowing through, getting into details on how to create a podcast and how to market your show and what type of content to produce. And it just kind of, and I think what's going to happen with that event is that I think it's going to expand and get into a bigger facility. And I think there's talk about making it be more of a nationwide Canada, type of conference. So instead of being kind of like Western Canada focused. So, it sounds like we may be seeing the birth of a conference that's decent size up in Canada, which I think is good.
Well, nice. So you got back from that, and then you almost did a flip-flop and you went down to LA, right?
Well, I went to LA first.
Oh.
So, and then I flew from LA up to Canada. So it was a couple days prior.
Oh,
The Worldwide Radio Summit. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. How did they all go have a cocktail when your session started?
Well, our session did start right after lunch, which is I would say a kiss of doom. But it actually worked out. Actually, the room was pretty full. I would say that the room probably had maybe 200 or 300 people in it. So it was a good size. It was a good size attendee type of room. The kind of moderator of the event or of the session pulled that event together under the guise that he wasn't going to do a podcasting panel. So, just to kind of set it up, right?
Oh.
But it was more about talking about, are all these new whiz-bang things like smart speakers and podcasting versus streaming, what's really going to happen? So the tone of the panel session was a fair amount of skepticism, right, about all this newfangled stuff. But when we got up on the panel, the conversation was all focused on what was happening in podcasting, the direction of podcasting, what's the future of podcasting. I thought it was kind of funny how it actually turned out.
A bait and switch.
Well, to some degree, but I kind of expected that was probably going to happen just because I think that audience is still curious about podcasting, and though the longer I'm involved in kind of presenting at radio events, the more I think that they're gonna embrace it, but it's not going to happen very fast. So,
yes.
And as far as I'm concerned, that's okay. I think they're still wanting to live in a world where they think that radio is the largest medium in the world. I mean, if you look at the presentations that are presented at those conferences, radio, FM and AM, well, mainly FM these days, but is always sitting at like 93% of the U.S. population is listening to radio. So they all think that they're sitting on top of the world, which may be the case. I can't really say, but I think as you look to the future, and maybe the time frames that we're talking about here are 10 years or whatever it is, that I believe that percentage is significantly going to drop fast starting at some point, right? You would think so.
Right. Well, the question is are they, the reality is, though, they're all broke. There's mounds, even, with the iHeart reorganization, they're still broke. They got mountains of debt.
Well, yeah, but if you look at the industry ad revenue, it's like what, $14 billion in ad revenue. It's just that they spent so much more money than that even that cash flow isn't enough. It's kind of what's going on, I think, right?
Right, because they overspend on stations and they got to support those plants, and that's why they've been consolidating, reducing costs. But, that's a whole nother topic. But, well, I'm glad you had a couple hundred people in the room. That was more than I had a couple of years ago. So good.
Well, I can see that crowd was, it's like a little skeptical of podcasting. Sure. It continues to be. But I do think that most people in that community are aware of podcasting and kind of aware that they need to be doing something with it. Yep. So, I mean, if I look at, that conference is really focused on kind of radio and music. Mm-hmm. So, kind of talking about podcasting at that event is a little bit of a bolt-on. It's not really a primary focus of that event anyway.
Right.
So, I thought it was interesting to be down there. It's first time I'd been down in LA in many years. So, it brought back some memories of my Podcast One days.
Right. Well, besides the conferences, there's the space is, there's no news, but no news in the podcasting space at all.
No, not at all, Todd. It's like slowest time ever in the 14 years that we've been in it.
Yeah. So I saw a tweet by you that was, well, first of all, we got two topics to talk about when it comes to, well, let's talk about the acquisition of Pocket Cast first. I saw a tweet from you that looked kind of, I don't know if you were cynical or if you were like, this is completely ironic, or why don't you talk about your thoughts on the acquisition of Pocket Cast by NPR?
Well, I just thought it was a little ironic, and I don't want to, stir up any bad blood too much amongst the community. So, I was a little skeptical of it, only from the perspective that, you start looking.
Hey, Rob, I lost you. I lost you completely here. I don't hear any audio from you. I think Skype failed us. Hey, Rob. He can't hear me. I'm tapping my ear. Maybe he can. Can I hear you now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You just like it dropped. It was almost like there was a as soon as you started talking, I don't want to have any bad blood, and it just died.
Maybe I shouldn't be talking about that topic.
It's funny. So anyway, so you said you didn't want to have any bad blood, but you found it ironic.
Yes, that's that NPR would acquire, or NPR and a group of NPR related entities would acquire a podcasting app that is full of indie and commercial radio podcasts, and then put in place a CEO of that application that was from iHeartRadio,
right?
Which is commercial radio, right?
Yeah.
So you do have to step back and you just look at that and go, okay, what is the bigger strategy here?
Does Pocket Cast generate enough revenue to support a CEO?
I think they charge $3.99.
Okay, but it's
$3.99.
Isn't it a one-time deal? But I was kind of like,
yes.
it kind of struck me funny that they were actually had a CEO assigned. And that was the thing. I was like, okay, all right, that's interesting. So now, because it's it just doesn't.
There's some cash there. Yeah.
And the second thing that struck me was that they almost immediately came out. We're not going to be tracking any people. We're not going to be adding anything. There was this big, they were, because their community reacted. And, but I'm thinking to myself, the group that just bought you is working for very, very hard to get rad adoption in the podcasting space. And yet you are immediately saying we will not track you. And I was like, really? You're not going to add anything in there you're not going to add RAD to the app? That was a pretty big statement to come right out of the gun and say, we're not going to add anything. They didn't even say RAD in the words, but they kind of, so I thought that was ironic in that, well, you know what they want to do.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's in the face of this EU thing that's going on, right? Of clamping down on tracking people via IP, right? Yeah. So I mean, it's a challenge to the podcast monetization era that we're in right now too. So, but I'm just really curious about the bigger strategy of this acquisition of this app by Public Radio. I mean, it just I guess it just begs a lot of questions, right? And I think they're trying to address those questions, because I know I raised those questions about what's going on here with this too. And I guess there's nothing wrong with them having this, but I also think that now as indie producers out here, there is a listening app out there that's tapping into, I believe, Apple's catalog, right, to populate its app of shows. So NPR now owns a app that's distributing every podcast in the market, right? And that includes indies and commercial radio too. And I guess, how does that align with NPR's mission to be non-commercial?
And at the same point is an app that, like you said, ties directly back to Apple, gets all its shows and feeds and information and metadata from Apple. So, that's a thing that most of these app developers don't realize. Apple could flip the switch and turn that off, and then they would have to go build infrastructure,
And who has the only other catalog of all the other all the podcasts? I can't think of who that might be.
Tom. Well, it's it's okay. We're here when they need it.
Exactly.
Here. But but it is so all these apps are tied back to that. So the real question then becomes is to watch for change over time. See what happens with the Pocket Cast app, and see if all of a sudden the NPR shows are sneaking to the top, and if there's like a separate area for them, and all of a sudden if the indie stuff starts getting pushed down. I don't use the app, so I'm not super familiar with it at all, besides the screenshots. So
I hear a lot of people have great things to say about the app. I think of all the apps for them to acquire, this was probably one of the better ones.
Of course. And it also, the Pocket Cast supports one-click subscribe on Android, so hopefully they won't pull that out. But they were one of the early ones that we got to support that. So they have both iOS and Android. So is this NPR's way of battling the dominance of Apple, or
yes,
but yet they're codependent upon Apple for the apps database
catalog. Yeah, talk about walking the line on lots of little issues here with this acquisition.
I don't like being codependent upon anyone.
Yeah. No, but it does. I mean, it does raise a lot of questions. I mean, there's no question. There's a lot of lines that were crossed in this acquisition. Not ones that are like illegal or wrong for them to cross. It just raises a lot of, I think the indie community needs to be aware. I think that commercial radio needs to be aware of what's happening here. And at some point, they just need to keep an eye on what's happening over there.
Right.
So, the public radio side of this industry, has a certain amount of confidence in their place. I'll just put it nicely like that. And they want to be even bigger than they are.
Yep.
So, and currently they're not as big as people think they are.
No, they're no.
And that's the honest truth.
Right.
I mean, that's not what those folks want to hear, but if you look at the bigger picture, public radio is just a small piece of the podcasting space. It's not the biggest piece, which we all know is the indie producer side.
Of course. So I guess we'll just watch this and see what happens with the app. And I'm going to tell you, the RAD meeting should be interesting next week. It really should, because I've had several emails back and forth with Brian, and
I have too,
and talking about, and just within the last week or so. And he was not happy with. He's concerned about the blog post I put up about RAD adoption and the uphill battle we have. And
it's just the truth. He doesn't like it, I guess. But
I gave some. Gave him some suggestions. If you want to have this go much further than beyond a bunch of podcast companies talking about it and coming up with a spec, you need to start reaching out to the app developers. And it was kind of funny, because it was the day the Pocket Cast acquisition was announced. He says, "Well, watch the news later in today." And so that news came out about the acquisition. And then almost immediately was followed up by a blog post saying, hey, we're not going to. And I was just like, I mean, that's adding to my layer of scratching the head. But I think that as I was, telling him in, just an email, I'm just like, if you want to move this thing, you got to get the app developers to start participating and making it, we're going to have to make it easy for them. And there's another group out right now that is trying to do the same exact thing. And it's called Pingback, podcastpingback.com. And they're trying to do essentially the same thing as the RAD protocol. And so, I had been telling the Podcast Pingback folks, I says, we make sure you go over and talk. There doesn't need to be two efforts that essentially does the same thing. And believe it or not, I think, based upon the information I've seen, I think the Podcast Pingback protocol might be a little more developed even than what the RAD one is. So it's kind of ironic here, because we really haven't seen a deep spec on RAD yet. But anyway, it is what it is here. But we'll see how this plays out, but it's gonna be an interesting ride.
Yeah. Do you know, is the RAD spec? I haven't looked at it that closely. Is it compliant with the EU's privacy, initiative right now?
I don't think so, but that was something I think it was brought up, if I remember correctly, because I don't think I attended the meeting. I think Angela did, and because I'm like, Angela, make sure that they're thinking about GDPR and tokenizing IPs and all that. And I think he mentioned it, but I think I be honest with you, I think there's a lot of podcasting companies not ready for May 25th. I think there's going to be some people scrambling to catch up.
Yeah. But no, we've been working really hard on it. I know that.
I just, the lawyers sent over like 5 new privacy documents and, all this stuff that we have to employ. And it's ridiculous. And, I'm just cringing about the amount of money I've had to spend on becoming compliant here. It wasn't budgeted. Let's put it that way. I've had to take it out. Well, all of the dev is slowed down.
Yeah.
Because of it.
It's the same thing happened with us too. We've had to apportion a significant part of our current development cycle to making this happen. And it's basically killing off lots of things that we needed to add to the platform.
It's driving me crazy. It's essentially a 2-month setback is for the way I look at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that's, fast approaching. I've seen some announcements by at least one podcasting company talking about GDPR, but not a lot of detail. And, so saying it and doing it are two different things. Actually having the back end system actually being truly compliant is, it's one thing to say you are compliant, but it's a much different situation, to actually be compliant. So, so anyway, that's down there. I'm like all over the place this morning.
Well, there's so much to cover. We're trying to jump around and cover stuff quick. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so of course, yesterday dropped this bombshell of a newly created venture who's raised $40 million from a venture group called New Enterprise Associates?
Luminary Media.
Luminary Media.
Luminary Media, yeah.
And they are going to be launching next year in the podcasting space. I had to load the Wall Street Journal. I'm not a reader of the Wall Street Journal. So I loaded the Wall Street Journal in my mobile app and was able to read the whole article. And it looks like they're doing premium, 100% premium.
Yeah, they're looking to partner with like Wondery and How Stuff Works and these folks to create premium content. Yeah. So the Netflix podcasting platform is, this is like, how many times before has the Netflix podcasting platform been attempted?
A lot.
Yeah. Really, I mean, all you have to do is look as far as Audible to find a Netflix podcasting platform, right?
So the question is, how do you put the genie back in the bottle? Okay, so the genie being free.
Yeah.
How do you put that back in the bottle?
I don't think you do. I don't think there's any way to put it back in the bottle. I think
40 million's a big number, Rob.
Yeah. Well, creating content's not cheap, is it?
Okay, but creating and licensing content, and then you're going to come to me. You're going to do a licensing deal. Does that mean I can't be on other platforms? I have to be on that one, and then I have to give up my advertising, and I have to hope that you're able to find enough subscribers that will pay to listen to what was free.
And is that really, Todd, even a podcast at that point?
It's just, they say they're already doing licensing deals. So if they're willing to pay, write me a check, a big enough check. That's going to have to be.
But we're not really content creators. I think that's the.
I'm a content creator.
Well, not the kind of content that these guys are looking for, right? I think what they're looking for is big time storytelling podcasts that will scale to millions of listeners. That's what they think they're going to accomplish here. Yeah. Oh, did you hear, Todd, that not to change subjects, we can go back to this other story, but the Alex Inc. TV show got canceled yesterday. Did you hear that?
Be honest with you, Rob, I don't even know what the Alex Inc. TV show is.
It's, well, if you think about Alex, kind of the guy that created Gimlet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he had a TV show?
Well, it's more like a namesake reference in this TV show.
Okay.
With Zach Braff. Zach Braff played a podcaster in this TV show on network television, right?
Right.
And I think it made it through like maybe 4 or 5 episodes, and the studio canceled it.
Well, again, I don't watch too much regular TV, so it's...
Yeah, well, and that's... yeah, exactly. So... Anyway, let's go back to the other topic, talking about $40 million going to content creators.
Yeah, so they're going to build a platform, and they're going to have premium content, and they're going to want listeners to sign up like they do for Netflix to pay for content on the platform.
Yeah, wasn't CastBox supposed to be doing this too? Right?
And they're still in business, right? In fact, they are.
I believe so. I think it's what their CEO is, Renee Wang, I think is her name, and she came from Google. So this is another platform that's being launched with grand ambitions to be like the HBO of podcasting, or those ambitions. And I know at some point we'll probably talk about Anchor too, right?
I went to castbox.com. Yes, we're going to talk about them. I went to... They must not be castbox.com.
Not sure what they are then.
Because there's a weird... it's castbox.fm.
Ah, okay.
I think they're just another host, aren't they?
Host and listening app, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's all free, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. So maybe they don't have a premium play. Yeah, so their website just shows an app. So maybe, I don't know, maybe they're just an app. They're sponsoring a podcast movement party, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, it's one of those things, Rob, where 40 million is, it's pretty ambitious, and they're going to be based out of Chicago. So, I went looking for them and found some filings, and looked at the founder's page, and really I didn't get too much insight into him. So I'm sure if these folks got that kind of money, we'll probably see them in Philly. So I'll be curious to see what happens with them. But 40 million is a lot. Of course, the last group that had like that kind of money was a pod show at about, I think they burned through 36 million. How long did they last?
Maybe 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years, right, before they burned through their money. So it's just a lot of people with money that are coming up with, it's okay. It's fun to watch the space.
Well, it's going to keep pushing the medium forward. At the end of the day, we're all still trying to address the core issue, and that's scaling this medium on Android, right?
Yeah.
And I know, you've been trying to do that for a while now, and the recent, kind of news that came out a little bit about Google was interesting, and that's a good development, but it's certainly not the solution.
And some of it wasn't news. Some of it was rehashing stuff that was already in place.
Yeah,
but,
that's right. That's right. Yeah. And we probably don't have to rehash it again, because I think we hashed it already.
Yep.
So anyway, I think it's good. I know you probably keep hearing from people kicking tires out there looking to invest in stuff, but that's what I'm hearing too, is that there's definitely a renewed interest in venture capitalists or whoever out there looking for investments, looking for high equity stakes for relatively low dollars. I would imagine maybe that was the case somewhat with some of these new companies that we're seeing in the scene right now too.
Well, I know that there's a lot of people talking, a lot of people that want to sign NDAs, but I'm going to be frank. There's a lot of money floating around the space right now, and people looking to do some land grabs. So, going through that whole that's something on the podcasting business side that we don't talk too much. It's expensive to do these, just to have a talk with a company about money acquisition, opening your books, just the lawyering up of all the stuff that has to happen to make sure your data remains secure. If something doesn't progress, it's a major pain in it, and it can be a distraction too. So, because you have to, it's a process. It's a big process, but I think there's a lot of money floating, but I think the majority of podcasting companies have been doing okay on their own, and unless some great terms are presented, I don't think there's going to be. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens with the space.
I don't know that I'm. I guess what's next, Todd, I guess is something I keep thinking about too. I mean, if you look at the history here, it's always been kind of small steps, small improvements, small growth patterns. Nothing really breaks through and causes a dramatic change. I mean, though I would say that the Spotify situation is probably the most recent exception to that. It seems like that's created quite a wave in the podcasting space. Not always a positive one, as we've seen. I also noticed, and I know we wanted to talk about the recent announcement that NPR did a deal with Spotify this week.
They get their own. They get their own button or something like that, right? Is that what it is?
I don't know about. Well, I don't know.
What does it really mean? What does it really mean to them getting distribution?
Well, exactly. And the devil's in the details on that one, because if you think about any major content company getting distribution on Spotify is going to raise a lot of questions, right? Because guess what? Spotify is redistributing content. That usually breaks some rules.
Well, I don't know.
Most media companies have on distributing their shows in the podcasting space.
Well, it's an interesting move, but it happens at the same time that we're at a podcast-wide global freeze on new
content,
new show submissions, and and you got podcasters. I'm getting daily emails. When is it going to happen? And I'm sending a boilerplate response.
Yes.
Yeah, and just because we have a semi idea when it's going to happen, but it's still a ways off before they're going to start taking shows again.
Yeah, and it's, from what I gather, it's not going to be like the floodgates are going to open. It's not like the dam's going to break. It's still going to, even at that point, they're going to just flow in, at a not a fast pace, but at a reasonable pace. But we're talking about sometime in early June potentially, but they're not definitive on that. They don't want to make any promises, and we're all hoping, but that's, who knows what happens actually.
Yep. And I've been digging through, we've got our stats interface under final beta right now, and I've been digging through, just loading my shows and, looking at, some content and looking at some data. And I don't know, I think there's high expectations by a lot of podcasters, and we'll see what their reactions are. some shows get a little traction and some shows get almost none. So
I think it gets back to how that show matches up with the demographics of Spotify.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it the number 2 destination in podcasting right now yet.
I think it's too early
to
actually know that.
Yeah, I think you have to have some more data before I can, do a roll up of everything. And
plus, most podcasters that are included in Spotify right now can't even see what their numbers are.
Right. Really, there's not numbers per se. It's a totally different. We had to make a whole new panel on our stats platform that was not. These are, it's not apples and oranges. Or it's not apples and apples. It's yeah. Did I say that right?
It is apples and oranges, really.
Right, it is apples and oranges.
Yeah, the distribution on Spotify leans towards on-demand streaming, right? Kind of is what it is. There's offline listening, but I mean, a lot of the technology that Spotify is using is the same technology that they use for music, right?
Right.
So there's nothing unique that they've built that's specific to podcasting, other than a feature page. So the offline listening part is they basically take an encrypted file, which is your episode, and store it on your local machine. It isn't like you can download an episode, from what I gather. I'm not on the technical team at Spotify, but I would assume this is how it works with music too. That you basically can download a copy of the music or podcast episode, but that's going to be encrypted on the hard drive. So it's not like you can drag it off and put it on another device or anything like that. It's a controlled offline listening experience.
Right.
It's kind of like it's a little bit like DRM, right? With Audible has done this for years as well, where they actually encrypt the files and you can only play it through their player, right? And I believe that's what's happening with Spotify too.
Well, should we talk about our futile? Is that the right word? Our futile conversation we had with a big-time YouTuber?
Oh, yes. Casey
Neistat.
Is it Neistat or Neistat? I can't.
Yeah, it's Neistat. Casey Neistat. Fantastic YouTuber, 6.9, almost 7 million followers on YouTube, launched a podcast with his lovely wife, Candace, they launched on Anchor. So Rob, you sent me a link to Casey's website. This is 6.9 million people on YouTube. He has, he's doing this new initiative called 368 or 386, 368 or 386 in New York City. And I'm excited about that initiative that they're doing. But Casey's is basically said, I don't need no effing website. And he didn't say it that way, but you might as well have said it. But his website is wow, right?
Yeah, it's basically a text document.
Yeah,
with links to social platforms. Yeah,
right.
So, Todd, I mean, I think this has been a question that's come up off and on over the last couple of years, right? Since we moved into this app generation, or this app-focused ecosystem that Apple really created, is that we've created this divide, right? That's happened between the web, World Wide Web, right, and the internet, and I guess that divide has always been there, Todd. But it's just a matter of, when I say that the divide is between the World Wide Web and the internet, what I'm saying is that apps live on the internet side. The web is a website, right?
Right.
So there is two separate things here, but he's of the opinion that most of his followers are not engaged in the web anymore, right? I would say that's wildly inaccurate. And I'm not sure that he understands what he's talking about when he talks about that. I would say most people spend a lot of time bouncing back and forth between the web and apps. And whether or not they realize they're doing that is a whole nother question, right?
He's going to carry his show with his with his YouTube audience. He's going to grow it there, no problem. And
sure, but that's on the web too sometimes, right?
Right. But I was, the point I was trying to make with him was he's big into creators and creators' rights and their content and owning their content, and he's a huge advocate for creators. And I just thought, well, I just thought it was so ironic because I tried to get him to go read his terms of service over at the company he's hosting his podcast with. And I'm like, here's a creator that has, got 6.9 million followers on YouTube, and he has allowed the company he works with to assign irrevocable rights to his content. And in all essence, he no longer owns his content. And I just...
well, he got bought is what it comes down to, right?
Well,
they built him a studio.
Yeah, they built him a studio.
Yeah.
And it's, and to be honest with you, it's okay. It's, it's a couple of back walls, some mics, and some lights, because they're also recording the, it's I don't know. It's cool. I'm glad they went right to number one. I would have expected nothing less, but yeah.
But going to number one doesn't mean what he thinks it means. So that's.
But he's a guy that he's focused, and we got to understand. Us all understand, Rob, his perspective. He would never sit and listen to us talk. He's very fast moving. He's got a publishing schedule every day. He's thinking about the next shot, the next thing he's going to put up on YouTube. He is completely engrossed in creating content. That's his entire focus. He doesn't care about anything else but creating content.
Yeah.
And he's done some clothing and some stuff like that, hoodies and T-shirts and stuff. But, and his wife is a creator too. She's got a brand called Billy, and I think it's a jewelry line, different types of things. And they're both successful. So, but it's a different mindset, where I've always thought about building brands, and that to me is, most important in controlling my brand and all that. I've been a, huge advocate from the really very beginning on that. And just to see it just, I can say, okay, cool. You don't want a website or anything else. That's your prerogative. But just the simple fact that he has given up so much of his creative rights, and it just blows me away. I mean, just blows me. And for those of you that don't know, that haven't read the Anchor terms of service, and if you're on Anchor, I highly encourage you to go read the terms of service over there. And I'll just leave it at that. And if you don't, you've been warned.
Yeah. Well, Todd, I mean, you have to admit that a guy like Casey maybe has enough power and clout in what he's doing to make really those terms of service kind of invalid in his particular case, right?
Maybe.
I think he has enough power to just kind of do what he wants to do, right? And not be, I mean, I suppose the company could really kind of legally hold his feet to the fire if they wanted to, but I think that may be counterproductive for Anchor to do so.
Right.
So I think that could be a little bit of what's going on here too. Anchor is doing some things that I consider to be cheating in the podcast hosting business. Let's be honest about it. Them automatically submitting your show to iTunes is a break in podcaster confidence, right? It's not a practice that any of the other platforms would even conceive of doing. I understand the reasoning for doing it, and that is to make things as easy as possible for podcasters to get going. Right. And we all want that as well.
Yeah.
But we also have to face the realities of doing what's right for the content creator too. And I believe Anchor is violating content creators' rights and control all over the place, and that's where our angst, Todd, you and I's concern comes from, is that they are violating the trust of content creators. And the problem is, I don't know that content creators all the time or every time realize that that's what's happening, because there's a lot of new people coming into the medium right now.
That's right. Hey, Rob, I'm just double checking here. We might be offline on Facebook, but we're still live on YouTube. I don't know if Facebook is like dropping in and out, so it doesn't appear. Anyway, we had people up to a few minutes ago, so I just sent a note in Facebook saying the live video is having trouble on Facebook. So, and then, another thing too is driving me absolutely crazy. Pippa? Oh, man.
Oh, Pippa, yeah.
Oh, man. And we had a customer call us, and I mean, called Mike, and literally screamed at him and called him every name in the book. How dare you give my email address to Pippa? And we're like, hey, we didn't. They scraped your RSS feed. It's not us. Why would we give your email address to someone that's, and oh man, it's such lowbrow, desperate poaching tactics. It's really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it to every company, every new, if you have a brand new show, you're scraped, and within 24 hours you get an email, hey, come over here and host with us. And it's spam through and through. So
yeah, I guess it's a sign that the market is getting competitive, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people, as more and more companies take venture capital and get in situations, there's a lot more motivation to do stuff.
Ryan Gray says podcasters don't have the power to move the needle where people listen based on where they just Spotify is number 2 because there are a lot of people listening there. I don't think Spotify is number 2 in podcasting, not from the data I'm seeing. Ryan, I really don't see that. So we'll see.
I don't think I think generally, I don't think there's enough shows over there to really, in a broad sense, move the needle that much yet.
Right.
So, Spotify took on a bunch of shows. I don't know how many shows you guys got in, but we didn't get that many shows in before they closed it down.
Right.
I think we have probably in queue right now waiting to be submitted over to them, 5,000 or 6,000 shows.
Right.
So it's just a matter of, when that opens up. But prior to that, we didn't have that many shows submitted into Spotify. So I don't know how many total shows you guys got in and how many Libsyn got in, but I think Libsyn definitely had a longer time frame to get shows in than all the other platforms had.
Right. We're all playing catch up. So I think that, I think I know roughly what the number is, but I think like you, we're sitting on probably 3,000 or 4,000 that we're waiting to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and they're just piling up.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And, originally we got, asked to just shut down taking submissions. And I kind of pushed back on that and said, no, we need to keep taking submissions.
Right.
And when you open up, we'll submit them over to you. But, that's just what you have to do in this situation. You can't just turn it off and on. You have to, it doesn't, that doesn't send the right message to the community.
So I think they were just, I think they were a little surprised. Of course, maybe that's why when we first had talks with them, I said, yeah, we got, 545,000 shows we can submit.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Not all of them hosted on on your platform. But yeah. I mean, if you want a full catalog, right? Yeah. Here you go. Yeah.
Well, so we may be partially online, partially offline today. That's okay. This is a podcast. I've had some internet issues here in the past week, and so maybe Facebook died. Anyway, it's definitely, I'm seeing errors pop up here. I had what was going on was I had some bandwidth issues, and it was intermittent, so I don't know what's going on, but anyway, we're podcasters. We're not live streamers. So what else? It just seems like it's lots of little things that's been going on. So anything else that you wanted to talk about that popped up?
Well, I thought it was interesting that and it was put out there that Midroll brought in about $11 million in revenue in the first quarter of 2018, which I thought was interesting news. And iHeartRadio hired a new VP of podcast revenue strategies, Carrie Lieberman, who I've reached out to.
So podcast revenue strategies. So that means all the podcasts that are going to be on iHeart are going to be monetized. Are the podcasters going to get compensation?
That's what I'm going to find out when I talk to Carrie.
Oh.
So we'll find out what that means.
That probably means that they're going to advertise on top of your podcast, and the podcasts are going to be given jack.
Well, it doesn't say advertising revenue strategy. It just says podcast revenue strategy. Todd.
Okay, well, Rob, that's the same thing.
Well, earlier conversation, the direction of premium, right, is going on here too. So we'll see on that on how all this plays out.
Yeah,
and I think it's a valid conversation, Todd, to have too. Is can this industry, in the long run and in the bigger picture, entirely rely on advertising as its base of industry revenue? There's going to be fluctuations in the economy. We're going to have a time coming up, hopefully not too soon, where we're going to see, a recession, or we're going to see a pullback. And what's the first thing that companies do when that happens? They pull back on their marketing budgets. So, we've seen it time and time again. We may see over the next couple of years a pullback on advertising.
Well,
we've seen it in the past with podcasting
too. We didn't really see it during we actually saw more ad dollars coming in during the last decline when the housing market went kaput. So,
Todd, it's not hard to show an increase when you're only doing like $10 million, right?
True. That's true.
But once you get to a certain scale, these market trends tend to have an impact.
Right.
So,
in the scheme of things, we were just flies on the wall. But the revenue did continue to increase, or the spends did.
Yeah.
Oh, funny.
Going from $1 to $2 million is right.
Yeah, but for a small company like me, going $1 million to $2 million, that's woohoo.
Yeah, exactly. That's 100% increase. Todd.
Yeah. Ooh, wow, great growth. But so I don't know. I think podcasters have been trying to figure out the premium piece though, and very few do it successfully.
Yeah, that's true. I also see that Serial's coming back for season 3, coming up in the third quarter of this year.
Okay, great. Woo, yes.
Yeah.
Season 3. Wow.
I'm sure that's going to move the needle.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure it's going to be included in Pocket Casts.
Of course.
Right?
I hope
feature pretty highly.
I hope they have 100 million listeners. Really, I do. Honestly.
I do too. Yeah.
But I become we're like old curmudgeon here. We get a little cynical because we kind of know maybe where the needle's actually going to fall. You hope it doesn't, but you're kind of like, oh, okay, why you have to wait a whole year for another season? Come on, this is podcasting.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to achieve anywhere near the success they did on their first series, right? It's all downhill from here, right?
Well, we hope it's uphill,
That hasn't been the history of this kind of stuff.
I know.
Because you build on top of audience. You don't go offline for a year and then come back and think that you're going to hold on to your audience. They moved on to lore, or they moved on to watching Alex Inc. Well, maybe not, but so
they moved on to stuff that's in their ear every week.
That's right. Yeah.
And this is, I get it. And I actually have this now as a default boilerplate response to people. What do you think about episodes or series? Yeah, series are great, long as, or seasons. Seasons are great, long as season 1 ends on a Friday and season 2 starts the following Monday. Those are great.
That's right. You can call them whatever you want
to. That's right. Just don't take a month or 2 or 3 or 6 or 9 off.
Yeah. I've always thought that the whole season thing was great for the content creator, but horrible for the audience.
Right. Yeah, you get 9 months off. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So the question though really is there's something new that it's not new, but it's been popping out once in a while, where they basically release the whole series at once. Bam. They drop 10 episodes on you.
It's the whole, was it the Netflix, Amazon model?
Yeah.
It's the binge viewing phenomenon.
Yeah. I think that the actual mechanical problem with that is that the Apple Podcast app is really not designed to optimize getting those episodes, because it won't download them all. If you drop 10 in there, it'll download the last 3 or 4, but it's not going to grab, episode 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 automatically. They still have to go in and click play. So,
yeah, I mean, are we going to see some of these podcast apps have like binge viewing settings, all right, where they just play one after another?
Well, I don't know. Don't think so.
Because we're seeing it on the TV side on apps. They just, within like 10 seconds, they're playing the next episode.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
I like that feature on Netflix and then on Prime. I really do, but I don't think that's a feature currently in podcasting.
Not generally, I would say.
No.
I agree. Yeah.
So, but yeah, a lot of stuff going on, lots of crazy stuff going on in the space.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's almost hard to keep up with at some point.
Yeah. So how goes your show? I know it's not something we've talked about lately.
It's, I had a weird month. This is May. In April, I have some insights into my sponsor performance, and I don't get to see all of it. I only get to see since the beginning, and this is just so we're giving some history here. When I started, had GoDaddy started sponsoring the show in July of 2005, or actually June of 2005. When you went to the GoDaddy checkout counter, the only way to get a discount was to cut and paste or write in the promo code. Mm-hmm. So from the very early days, I trained my audience to take the promo codes and enter them in the cart at checkout. I'd done that for years and years and years and years. So 3 years ago, they wanted me to... They still give me my own custom codes and custom offers, but they actually put me on Commission Junction. They actually put the interface. I still had the same contract and nothing changed as far as how I was getting paid. It was a completely custom deal in CJ. And so what I can see over there, and because CJ's weird, is I can only see the clicks. If someone has clicked on a link and went to GoDaddy and bought something, that's tracked in CJ. But if someone uses a promo code and checks out, it's not. So at the end of the month, they have to marry those. They have to pull in their system and say, okay, this was a number of codes that were used directly on the GoDaddy website, and which is cool. And then they give me the number. So in April, it was off. I usually can see a ratio of people that have clicked, and that ratio was off like 75%. I was freaking out a little bit. I couldn't figure out why the performance was where it was at. And, I kind of asked the audience to step up a little more. And hindsight being 2020, the performance wasn't off at all. Just more people were using writing the code in at checkout, and everything ended up being fine for the month of May. But this is the first month that had ever happened, and I was completely tripping out. I keep the lights on here.
So what you're saying is that more people weren't using the Commission Junction
link
kind of link pass through.
Yeah, so more people were, and which goes to, because this is still what I tell the audience still in the regular show is, make sure you use the code that's appropriate for the product that you're buying, and enter it at checkout. I still send them over to the default GoDaddy landing page, and as well, and then and I've over time kind of encouraged them to click as well, just so we get it locked in case they decide later, 3 days later, they're going to come back, because it holds the cookie for, 30 days or something like that. I still get credit for sale if they come back. But but go ahead.
I just wanted to mention, so the site that you're talking about is CJ.com, which is Commission Junction,
right,
which has turned out to be the affiliate platform that has survived over the years.
Right.
There were many of them out there that were involved in the early days of the internet and the web, but they seem to be the one that actually survived the shakeout that happened on affiliate programs a few years back. But so GoDaddy is using CJ in conjunction with entering promo codes directly in their website. For external outreach is what they're using Commission Junction for, right?
And just for the management of the campaigns and my codes, they've got a pre-built system. They just go in there and they assign my codes, and it's easy. So from that standpoint, I understood why they wanted to do it from a management standpoint. But
it's not going to capture all the data, though, unless they use it off of their own website.
No, it's not.
Doesn't sound like it's what they were doing.
Right. Yeah. And so, that's the thing that people need to be aware of, too. If you're using a system if you're doing affiliate deals, never tell them to enter the code. And never, ever tell them to enter the code at checkout. You tell them to click the link.
Yeah, because then you're not going to get credit for
the transaction. Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I've got a direct relationship and a long time, a contract with them. They go into their back end and look when that code's been used. So, if you have a CJ account, you always tell them to click the link. Don't ever, you beg them not to enter the code at checkout.
Which is a little counterintuitive, Todd, because we've kind of trained podcast listeners to enter promo codes, right?
Well, as long as the vendor you're working for is checking their back-end system for all the code usage, you're good.
Yeah, that's true. There has to be a cross
compatibility on that. Most ad deals that are being done in podcasting are not being done kind of the way my hybrid thing's working with GoDaddy either. So that's a whole different, because if I do an ad deal with a company, we're usually using a promo code directly on their website. We're not using some affiliate management site to do the deals through.
So is GoDaddy going to incorporate the CJ kind of protocol in their order shopping cart process?
Well, it is. If you click on the link, it is. You know.
Oh, no, but I mean, if they manually go in and enter the code,
there's no way for that to be tracked back, unless it isn't.
Well, unless they're tracking that particular code,
right? And that's where you have. Again, I'm a one-off. Okay, so my deal is kind of weird. If you're gonna, if I'm doing a regular deal for someone, we're not doing it through where the codes are being issued by CJ.
Gotcha. I get it.
You know, they're entering my codes. They're creating them for me. But, you know, it's so, you know, and if we're doing a deal with stamps.com, stamps.com is going to give me the codes, and you're going to go to stamps.com and enter in checkout. So this isn't an issue, but it is an issue if you're using CJ just as an affiliate marketing tool, you know. You know, because if you think about most folks that are doing affiliate marketing, they're not doing a podcast. They're doing it on their website, and people will click through on the website anyway. They don't have a podcaster telling them enter the promo code at checkout.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's an interesting dynamic, but you know, so I was, you know, tripping a little bit for no reason. But the show itself, I've got for about a year now, I've got someone that does pre-production for me and is my stand-in when I can't do the show. So his name's Kirk, and he's done 4 episodes so far when I've been on travel. So it's you know, we're learning as we go, and I just cut him loose cold turkey. I'm like, oh, you got it, dude. You know, gave him some instructions, gave him a little cheat sheet on how to do the rest of the show production once he got done recording, and just, you know, it's just like it's standing on the end of the dock and you get pushed in, go swim.
There's no safety net, right? You either fall off of the wire or you stand on the wire, right?
Yeah. It was just like, I remember when I had first gotten married, we were going to go to see a family in Michigan, and I was living in the Washington, D.C. area. And I got up into Pennsylvania, and I got on the toll road, and I got to a rest area, and I stopped. And I'm like, all right, honey, it's all yours. And then, you know, she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you have to be, she's from Japan, and she had a driver's license. But I said, you can't be codependent upon me. You have to be able to drive here and be comfortable. And I got you on the highway, and let's go for a couple of hours, see how you do. So she always talks about that with her friends. Yeah, my husband made me drive 3 days after we got married, and threw her into the deep end. So, but now she's independent. She doesn't, you know, as she should be.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. So yeah, no safety line.
Well, Todd, I'm definitely seeing a lot more activity in the podcasting space outside of the U.S. more and more.
Oh, that's good.
You know, as this whole thing with Pod Summit is a little bit of an example of that.
Right.
I'm going to be doing a 2-day workshop in Lisbon, Portugal at the end of the month. I don't know if I mentioned that before.
Yeah.
I may have. Yeah. So, and I can see, I think that there's a lot of stuff bubbling even down in Australia these days with podcasting. So who knows, I may be, or one of us from up here may be taking trips down to Australia before too much longer.
Wow.
It's hard, you know, it's hard to say at this point, but this industry is expanding and growing. And I think Europe and abroad is about two or three, probably 3 years behind the U.S. right now as far as adoption of podcasting and understanding of the medium. But it seems like it's starting to turn around. I know there's huge stuff going on down in South America. I know, Todd, you're kind of a little bit engaged with some of that.
Yeah, Brazil's huge.
So, you know, I guess it's great. We're coming into a time when podcasting is becoming really an international medium, which it always has been. It's just there's events, there's a lot of energy and excitement happening around the world now. So it's good.
So just as a heads up, Rob, I am actually planning a true, completely be disconnected vacation.
What?
Yes. And
what does that mean, Todd?
That means getting on a jet airplane, going to a foreign destination, and doing nothing for 1 week.
Are you going to Japan?
No, I'm going somewhere in Asia, but I'm not going to Japan.
Okay. Okay.
And it
Thailand.
Is, not Thailand's too far. So it is truly going to be a really like disconnected vacation.
No phone.
I will be doing my best not to use the phone for 1 week, and but it is going to cross 2 Saturdays, so potentially 16th and 23rd of June I will not be in country. So
okay.
Yeah, it's high potential there. We're still weighing it whether or not to do it. We're looking at airline tickets and see if we can afford it. But yeah, and be honest with you, we've done like little weekend trips here, 2 or 3 days there, and my type of vacation is like a pina colada in the ocean, and not in Hawaii.
No, I mean, Todd, I just don't take vacations. I never. I mean,
I don't either. I
can't even remember the last time I took a vacation. I don't even know what those are anymore.
Yeah, so that is part of the, I vowed this year to get one in, and to get a true one in, because the rat race. It's you and I are both the same. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning. And I very rarely wrap up here until
and not get back till Friday or something.
Right. Yeah. And then again, Friday burns, and for people that are working, have regular jobs, they got to burn 40 hours of vacation time. That's 5, and most companies only give 5 to 15 days worth of vacation a year. So I just think about the independent content creators and having to burn that much vacation time. And for business owners, it's okay. It's not vacation, it's work. But for the attendees, it's vacation time.
Yeah.
And for independent content creators, most of them have JOBs.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, we've talked about it already, but
yeah. So, the planning process at Podcast Movement's coming along too. I mean, content from the standpoint of sessions and things is progressing pretty aggressively right now.
Yep.
Things are coming together on that. I'm sure you've got your agenda and
we're working on the marketing. Too. Working on the marketing plan. So it was a large part of we have a weekly meeting with our marketing company on Monday. That was a big part of it. So. But if you look at their list of people that are participating this year, it's pretty big, and you've got Acast, Ad Large, American Public Radio, Audible, BuzzFeed, iHeartRadio, IAB, Gimlet, ESPN, Edison, Midroll, NPR, Panoply, Public Media, PRI, PRX, Turner, Triton, Spotify, Slate, Scripps, Radiotopia, Veritone, WNYC, Wondery. Notice a trend there.
Yeah.
Lots of public radio types. Lots and lots and lots.
Yeah. Yep. And now they bought Pocket Cast.
Yep. So.
Yeah. So it's all right.
Yep, it is.
Yeah. It's the evolution of what's happening here.
Yeah.
No question.
Yep. But anyway,
okay.
We're here at the end. How do we make it to the end?
I don't know, Todd. It's always a mystery to me how we make it to the end every week.
All right. Well, I guess we're on for next week. I don't have anything. I guess I'm going to be here. Are you going to be around next week?
Yeah. Of course.
All right. And you go to when do you actually go to Lisbon?
Lisbon is at the end of the month on the 20. I think I leave on the 26th, 27th.
Oh, so you're going to be gone for Memorial Day then.
Don't get back until like the first couple days of June.
Wow, that's nice. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You going to take a little vacation while you're there at the same time? Put your feet in the water or something?
Well, I had to actually, if I wanted to get a decent airfare to get there, I had to stay a week.
Really?
Yeah, because if I stayed anything less than a week on my return flight, they doubled the airfare.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
It's interesting how that
works.
Interesting how that works out. Hey, boss, it's $4,000 if I stay a week it's $2,000 for airfare if I stay a week, or it's $5,000 if I stay for 3 days. What do you think?
That's a hard sell. Yeah.
Yeah, those are easy ones. You can stay a week. Even the extra hotel, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because the hotel's not that expensive there.
Oh, that's good. All right. Yeah. That's one thing too about Asia too. Hotels are you can stay a 5-star hotel for a lot less money than you can obviously in the United States. So
yeah,
you look at the airfare, then you look at the hotel and oh, that kind of offsets. You're kind of like, oh, it's about the same vacation as going to Disneyland. Instead, you're in some foreign country in a 5-star hotel.
So you're probably all caught up in the whole booth process with NAB, right? That's an interesting process, isn't it?
I did choose my booth during the booth selection time.
Yeah, I did too. So, but you have to pay for it soon,
right?
Or start paying for it.
Start paying for it
in June.
Is it in June
next year?
Oh.
Yeah, it's paid in 3 separate payments, right? So,
right.
So they get you locked into the next year's exhibition event really early in the process.
Yeah.
We didn't realize this when we got involved with this, that's how that worked.
Well, you can always say no.
Yeah, well, if you want to participate, it's probably not a smart move, though.
Right.
Given how they do their things.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard really any kind of a new strategy for us being there, though.
No, right? That's my concern here, too.
Yeah.
And the positioning's a little bit better, but it's, unless you're on the front row, which you and I both are not, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're in okay places on the show floor, but I just don't know what they're going to do around us, if you know what I mean, for my content and visibility and traffic flow, because we're not really in a much different situation than we were last year in some ways.
Right.
So,
well, I will say that I've made I have a couple of very high-end potential clients that will essentially pay for the show. So I've had some good leads out of it. So
good. No, I think it's a good show to be at in the bigger picture of things. I do think it helps get some credibility to the industry.
Yep.
Though I think it's got a long way to go. We can't even be members of NAB yet. So if that tells you, we're still on the outside.
So hopefully we can stick and rudder these folks a little bit on the content piece this year. Yeah, hopefully we can.
Well, I was recommending to them that they just let Dan and Jared run their content. But we'll see on that.
Does Dan and Jared have enough CPU cycles to do that, top of everything else?
I believe they are willing.
Okay.
So I think it would be probably a good approach for NAB to do that.
And it's not like they're scheduling 80 sessions; they're scheduling a dozen or less. So
yeah, I mean, it's kind of a little bit like what Jacobs Media is doing with the with the radio industry, coming in and booking like a track to bring in radio people.
Yep.
I'm also hearing that Podfest Orlando may be making some moves for the next year too. Yeah.
What kind of moves?
Just making the event a little bigger and more of a national event.
Okay.
So I think it's a good development that's coming down from that.
All right. Well,
I mean, if you think about Podfest and Podcast Movement, they're kind of alternating events, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the calendar, they're like 5-6 months apart. So I think it makes sense.
It's a good split. Yeah.
It is.
Okay. Let's get out of here. Everyone, thanks for being here. If you have questions for me, it's Todd@blueberry.com. And you can follow me on Twitter @GeekNews. Rob?
I can be found on Twitter as well. It's a good place. I I just post up there a lot. I kind of wonder though, Todd, about the viability of Twitter going forward. But anyway, I keep posting over there at Rob Greenlee, and I can also be reached in email, rob@voxnest.com. Can be a place you can find me as well.
Rob, if they don't survive, social media is going to be impacted. So anyway, everyone, thanks for being here. We'll see you next week on the New Media Show. Everyone, take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.